Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing and beautiful day it is today. And welcome back. I hope your rest was amazing and you're rocking and ready to go. We got a bunch of business to attend to today. We're keeping our eye on what's happening with these elections. So we got some big stuff happening in Florida, big stuff happening in Wisconsin. We're going to be checking in on that throughout the day. Here's what we got queued up. Some of the 4x4 activity. We got CNN, Fox, MSNBC. Cory Booker is still up there. Give it a rest, Cory. 23 hours. Doesn't he have other better things to do? Anyway, so we'll keep our eye on what's happening with the elections and come back and check in on that. But we got a bunch of other business to attend to today. Lots of fun stuff that is happening. We got updates with Judge Boasberg that we're going to talk about because this is Judge James Boasberg, of course. He is in the D.C. District Court, and we've got now 27 states. The majority of the states are coming in as friends of the court on behalf of America and saying, can we please keep these deportations going? We need them to get a fuera out of our country so we can regain control of our country and govern ourselves without chaos amidst our citizenry. So we're going to go to the Supreme Court today. We've got that one queued up, and then some reaction to a lot of this because there was also this story today breaking. This dude was like a father and like a hairstylist or something, and he was just an innocent person who was afuera out of the country, and you saw a bunch of the hubbub about this today. Well, Will Chamberlain did an amazing job of debunking a lot of the fakeness around this story. There was The Atlantic, obviously a hack magazine, who came out with this story. Will Chamberlain is going to come and help set us straight. So we're grateful to him for that. We've also got Karoline Leavitt doing the same and debunking a lot of the garbage that we saw percolating today from another CIA cutout called The Atlantic, just like they did it with Jeffrey Goldberg. So we'll go through that. We'll see what the 27 states have to say about this, and we appreciate their support. Then we're going to talk about Boasberg. That same judge, this guy, is now facing some scrutiny in Congress, and Andy Biggs from Arizona, shout out, has now introduced a resolution to remove Boasberg. Not an impeachment article, but removal with a resolution. Something that Andrew Branca has been talking a lot about out there. Shout out to Andrew. So we got that. We got Andy Biggs saying the resolution is now introduced. We'll read through it. You can see we got a draft of it here, not too long, 5 pages, and this might be the start of something big. And it might actually, even if it's not successful, show these judges that they're up against a co-equal branch. In this case, it's also Congress, right? So they're trying to usurp the presidency. Now they're having to face some consequences from Congress. So we'll see what that looks like. We've got reaction from Biggs and more. Chuck Grassley was saying that they're going to be working on this from the Senate side. And so we'll see what they come up with. More reaction from Markwayne Mullin, another senator. And the question, of course, is about the polls. What do the polls say about this? Do the American people want these bad judges removed? We'll go to CNN and we'll see what they say about that coming up soon. Then, quick update on this lawsuit that was filed by the Democrats. This one's wild. The Democrats sued basically everybody that you can think of. Check this out. So they're suing Trump, the presidency office, the Election Assistance Commission, the DOJ, DOJ, State Department, Homeland, DOD, Veterans Affairs, Interior, Small Business, Social Security, and Benjamin. They're even suing Benjamin and Donald and Thomas and Christy and Bondi and Amy. It's like, good Lord, they're suing everybody. All right, so this is the Democratic Party. They're very mad about Trump's new election executive order that's going to bring election reform and electoral security back to our governance, and they're unhappy about it. So they sued. We'll hit the highlights on that lawsuit. We'll see what else was happening today because Newt Gingrich was in Congress, and he was talking about what is happening with these judges and what Congress can do. Do they have to just sit there like bumps on a log, or can they do something meaningful here? And this was a fun clip, speaking about all these lawyers and all these people who were getting fired. This was a great clip from Senator Jim Banks, okay? This HHS worker got fired today. Probably go hire some of the ACLU gangbanger lawyers. And came after Jim Banks in the Senate. And Jim Banks had just one of the most epic departures you've ever seen. So that's coming up in just a few. Then we got some red on red congressional something going on today. Anna Paulina Luna versus Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oh man, it's about to get hot in here. So you can see Rep Luna was going to demand that we could have proxy voting in Congress. And then Representative Luna and Tim Burchett and others joined ranks with the Democrats and stalled out the rest of the agenda for the rest of the week. And they were happy about it. Here's Tim Burchett. He came out with Luna and the babies and some of the other people. And Marjorie's not happy about it. Steve Scalise, not happy about it. Mike Johnson, not happy about it. So we'll see what some of that drama looks like. But Congress is going home for the rest of the week. So a bunch of good stuff coming up, as you can see. Nice little outline there for us. Bunch of good stuff to get to today. Grateful that you're here and with us. Before we get into any of the meat and potatoes on the day, you know what we got to talk about? Bird flu. It's true. Yes, there's deadly bird flu strains in this country. And it's for the first time in 8 years. We saw this story not long ago, a couple weeks ago. Deadly bird flu strain confirmed in the U.S. for the first time in 8 years. That's not a good situation. Headlines here, you can see this is the first time since 2017 that this has resurfaced. Now, they're telling us that if you get infected, this is a pretty wild number. If you're infected in the world, okay, so this is globally, nearly 4 out of every 10 infected who have gotten it have died. That's pretty scary. So Peter McCullough has warned us about this, talking about bird flu and how viruses could change rapidly. And so that's what's happening right now. And symptoms can pop up on people fast. And that's why we want to be prepared. And one way we can be prepared is with our friends at the Wellness Company. And you can see your boy is here on the screen. And you can grab the link for the Wellness Company, twc.health/Robert down below. But the USDA is investing $100 million to accelerate prevention and vaccine stuff. But the Wellness Company can help you get prepared right now. You can get doctor-prescribed, life-saving medications, 5 of them in this kit. Just comes right to your door. We've got ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, Tamiflu, nebulizers, bunch of good stuff. Ordering is super simple. Just go follow our link, twc.health/Robert. Fill out a digital intake form. Your kit, right to your door. 1 to 2 weeks. Don't even have to think about it. So don't get caught off guard. Go to twc.health/Robert. Use code Robert. You're going to save $32 off, and you're going to get free shipping. And these kits are only available in the USA. And we appreciate the Wellness Company for sponsoring today's show. And we hope that you, of course, get prepared. Better to need it, better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, as they say. That's what they used to say in criminal law all the time. Better to know a criminal defense attorney and not need one than to need one and not know one. So anyways, so we got a bunch of other business to attend to today. And let's get to it. Here is the most recent filing. Here we are. Starting now. In the Supreme Court of the United States, President Trump now joined by a bunch of other states, 27 of them if you count them. You got 25 states plus Carolina and Virginia. Pretty sure if you add those up, that's 27. And they're here as amicus in support of President Trump. Now, Trump has taken this case. Remember, this case is the JGG deportation case, the Tren de Aragua gangbangers who were deported out of the country. This judge, Judge Boasberg, who was appointed by Barack Obama and who is part of a Democrat super family. His wife runs an abortion clinic or founded one, and his daughter works for, we don't really know what, but we suspect indigent immigrants, many probably illegal. So we talk about some conflicts and things there. This was the same judge who sentenced Ray Epps to probation. Okay, so he's been around a long time, appointed by Obama, was on the FISA court, was on the terrorist removal court, all the things. He ordered the plane to come on back to the United States. We don't want the gangbangers to leave the country. And the ACLU lawyers filed, and then the judge certified the gangbangers as a class. Okay, they have a class action. You see the commercials for mesothelioma. This is for gangbangeroma. And they're all just certified. And the ACLU is representing them. So what has happened here is this judge, of course, has stopped Trump from acting under the Alien Enemies Act. And now we're at the Supreme Court. We've already here read through Trump's application to the Supreme Court, and John Roberts was issuing an order to get filings shifted in there by today. And so what we see is a bunch of people filed amicus briefs, okay, friends of the court, APA Watch, here's another one, American Rights Appliance, oh, Democracy Defenders Fund, Norm Eisen's groups, I think is there. We've got American Rights Alliance, another representative, Brandon Gill, submitted something, and more. The one we're looking at today, though, is the majority of the states. So Virginia, South Carolina, 25 other states here in support of President Trump, saying we have to deport the bad terrorist out of our country. Here are the states. And if your state's not on here, you've got some explaining to do, and my state is not on here. Says each state is directly impacted by criminal activity. Why would it be, right? Our Attorney General is Chris Mays, and she's terrible. Impacted by criminal activity perpetrated by violent foreign gangs. We, as a state, have to suffer the consequences. And each state here has an interest in protecting its citizens from this criminal activity. And that's why 27 states here support Trump's robust actions against the notorious Venezuelan gang called Tren de Aragua that are wreaking havoc within our borders. Now, President Trump's recent proclamation uses constitutional and statutory authority to deport Venezuelan citizens who are members of Tren and are not American citizens or lawful permanent residents. They've got no lawful reason to be here. Now, the same day, March 15th, a complaint was filed challenging this action from the Tren de Aragua gangbanger ACLU lawyers without briefing from the federal government at all. However, a lone district court judge called Judge Boasberg, I just showed you his photo, certified a class of non-citizens in custody affected by the order and said Trump can't remove them anymore, even if they're a threat. So then on March 16th, the government filed an emergency motion, Trump's government, for a stay. Stop Boasberg. On March 26th, Boasberg denied the government's emergency motion. Rather, this is the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, said, no, sorry. And the government filed a motion with this court, Trump, with the Supreme Court, to vacate the orders from Boasberg. And so now the states are here, 27 of them, saying, can you please vacate the district court's TROs? We want the gangbangers to be deported out of our country. Okay, get rid of Tren. 27 states. Now, the district court's TROs should be stayed. Judge Boasberg, he should be stopped and vacated for at least two reasons. One, Judge Boasberg and his little order, they undermine the security of the states and the nation's security more broadly. Now, the gang's TDA has ravaged innocent citizens across this country, and the states finally, we beg, have a welcome partner in the presidency called Trump, willing to fight for the safety and the security of the American people. It's taken forever to finally get one. We've had many of them. But when Trump endeavored to remove violent gangbangers and TDA from the United States, a single district court judge, Judge Boasberg, with his abortion wife and his indigent daughter, prevented him from carrying out that mission anywhere in the country, allowing TDA to continue its operations and its criminal activity in our states, in the states that are filing this brief. The public interest weighs in favor of the safety and the security of American citizens. And now, second, the TRO also fails to properly evaluate the sources of the president's authority. So you don't have the power to do this. This is Trump's power. President Trump acted pursuant to both constitutional and statutory authority. At this confluence of two significant fonts of authority, the judiciary should have been reticent to issue a nationwide injunction. Okay, Trump has this power and he has this power. And when he's exercising these things together, he's using both of them. At the very least, you should not have issued a nationwide injunction. If you wanted to stop Trump from deporting these 5 people who are part of this lawsuit, fine. But to stop him across the entire country, you didn't even have briefing from Trump. That error alone, Supreme Court, right, the 27 states, over half the country, calls for a vacature of the TROs. Here's why. All right, listen, SCOTUS, talking to you, Amy Coney Barrett and Judge Roberts. The district court, Judge Boasberg, failed to fully weigh the public interest that we have here, overlooking how its TROs are going to undermine the security of the states. Now, the President Trump's and his proclamation describing the gang and their brutality comports with the recent experiences of the states and underscores the importance of public safety. Now, pursuant to his authority, Trump issued a proclamation. He went after all the people doing all the crimes. He is wanting to end anything that destabilizes our country and undermines public safety. Now, the experiences of the states bolster and support Trump's findings. Okay, we've all experienced it, all of us. Even the blue states who aren't on here, even New Yorkers are like, this immigration thing's pretty rough. In the past year alone, TDA members have eliminated permanently from the planet American citizens, the gangs have seized property, and they violently attacked police officers. In particular, they murdered Laken Riley. We had to pass the Laken Riley Act, mandating federal detention of illegal aliens who are arrested for certain crimes. Now, they also, this gang, took over an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. They said it's our building now. And they reportedly terrorized the apartment complex with violence and intimidation. They used it as a hub for illegal activities, such as the abuse of minors. Now, TDA has been given a green light. They've said, okay, go after law enforcement officers. So we're just waiting for some sort of mass mall attack or something like that happening. God forbid. TDA's presence is felt far and wide. In fact, last month, ICE officials arrested multiple TDA members doing a routine stop in South Carolina. TDA has been linked to Virginia as well. Virginia's suing here, filing here, in addition to a host of other states. And TDA is on the very doorstep of the nation's capital in Northern Virginia. Now, as long as this gang is allowed to continue to operate and expand through the U.S., the gang will continue to rain down a deluge of criminal activity upon the states. In short, the states and their citizens are being actively harmed by this infiltration. And so in response, the states have attempted to act, and we're going to. After all, one of the core functions of the states is to protect their citizenry. States can act to defend their citizens from safety risks posed by illegal immigrants. And states and localities can act as important partners in federal immigration efforts. Many of the undersigned states have undertaken these measures, and they're going to continue to do so. But states are often constrained when they're countering these gangs. It's the federal government that's supposed to handle these things. The states don't have a military, per se, like the government does. States are not in the position to negotiate with foreign governments or the Maduro regime to engage in treaties with their people to stop the invasion. Now, as Judge Walker explained in his dissenting opinion from the Court of Appeals, the government has shown that Boasberg's orders are actively harming these diplomatic efforts and the foreign policy of the United States. And by issuing a universal TRO without the benefit of briefing from the United States or other parties, Boasberg botched this, and he's not fully considering the harms in this case. Now, the district court, Boasberg, also erred here by failing to afford Trump proper deference. He's the president of the United States, elected with a mandate from the country, 7 swing states and the popular vote. In doing so, the district court violated important principles of the separation of powers. How dare Boasberg take this away from us? Trump issued his proclamation. He has authority vested in him, pursuant to the Constitution. Now, and he also have U.S. Code. Now, both of those sources of authorities, okay, Trump has 2 stones in the glove or whatever. He has a ton of power. Both sources of authority for bringing action, and he cannot be stopped by some TRO. Article 2 of the Constitution provides the president with substantial authority over foreign affairs and national security. The court has long recognized plenary and exclusive power in this role. And the president was acting pursuant to that power and statutes. And this is authority that Congress has decided is not subject to judicial review. Okay? The president is the president to act with expedience and with wisdom and haste, quickly, with executive decision-making power. The judiciary is not set up for that. And by the way, the president has to make judgment calls on which the president can be removed from office. He's politically accountable for that. Okay, if Trump screwed up with Tren de Aragua, the Republican Party is going to pay for this. And everybody else in his administration is going to have a bad future if they screwed it up. They have skin in the game. They have to suffer the consequences of their actions. These judges don't. They're in there for life. There's basically no repercussions because Congress is mostly feckless and won't do anything about it. So these judges stealing this power is tyrannical behavior because they know nothing's going to happen to them. There are no consequences for it. In fact, they get lauded around, paraded as heroes by the Democrats who love tyranny. Now, as the court explained in interpreting the statute, they wrote, the Supreme Court, full responsibility for the exercise of this power may validly be left where Congress has placed it. Where is that? The President of the United States. They write, quote, because the founders in their wisdom made him not only the commander-in-chief, but also the guiding organ in our conduct of foreign affairs, the president, who was entrusted with such vast powers in relation to the outside world, was also entrusted by Congress with the disposition of alien enemies during a state of war. They gave that discretion to Trump. You can't take it away. If you do, if the judge overrides that, where Trump has specific power and authority, that is the judge being the president. That's illegal. It's a violation of the separation of powers, and the judge knows what he's doing. Now, each of those fonts of authority are independently compelling. Working in tandem, however, right? Trump has two powers. I could either use this or this, but I'm going to use them together. When the president acts pursuant to an express or implied authorization of Congress, his authority is at its maximum, for it includes all that he possesses, plus all of the rights that Congress gave him. Okay, so he's got everything in the Constitution under Article 2. Then Congress passed a statute and said you also have these powers. So he's got two branches of government under the Alien Enemies Act, which Congress gave to him. Don't care how old it was. Constitution is also old. They both still matter and govern. They're both the law. So for this judge to do what he's doing is usurping two branches of government, they say. The district court should have been circumspect, should have respected his co-equal branches, but he didn't before he issued and granted a nationwide TRO. This is particularly so given that the named plaintiffs don't even have jurisdiction to be here. They should have brought their habeas claims to challenge their detention on an individualized basis over in Texas, but they didn't want to stop and file in Texas because they wanted Boasberg to get the case, however he got the case, and then execute it accordingly. So the states say the court should stay and vacate the district court's TROs signed by a bunch of states. What's up? Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky. We got South Dakota, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, Ohio, North Dakota, Nebraska, Montana, Missouri, Mississippi, Louisiana, and more. And you know what's so interesting about this? Like on this DC court, you know, there's not a single representative there, I think, from Alabama or Alaska. Like there's no judge from Alaska, no judge. I think there might be a judge from Florida in the DC circuit. There's like Florida, New York, San Francisco, California, but nobody from Georgia, definitely nobody from Idaho, nobody from Indiana on there. No, Iowa, no. Kentucky, no. Nobody is on the DC circuit, or the DC district court, rather, is what I'm explaining. Louisiana, no. None of these states are on there. But you know who is on there, though? Jamaica. It's true. Jamaica's on there. There's a judge from Jamaica on the DC district court, but nobody from Tennessee on there. Nobody from Texas on there. Nobody from Utah. Nobody from West Virginia. Nobody from Wyoming. You know who's over there on the district court? Canada. Yeah. And you know who else? India. It's true. India has a judge on there too. But nobody from these states. So Iowa's not going to be on there anytime soon. I don't know if there's any good judges in Iowa. I would imagine there are, but they didn't care. They got some other inexperienced judges with no judicial background like Judge Chutkin from Jamaica. And then they also got some other judges, like I think there's one from Trinidad and Tobago, I think, another judge from there also on the bench. That's good. Because they probably didn't want to bring anybody from Montana because, you know, that would have been America. And why would they want that there? So the Supreme Court could do something about this, step in here and take control back of our country, but we don't know. This case, of course, going to the Supreme Court, so we'll see what they do with it. Now, simultaneous to this story, we also had this hoax that was percolated throughout the media today from Will Chamberlain. He tells us this, says, let's tell the story of this person. Okay, so the Atlantic posted this story today. An administrative error sends a Maryland father to a Salvadoran prison, right? And there was an administrative error. We're going to talk about it. It's true. It did happen. Trump even admitted it. The administration says, yeah, there was an administrative error. We're going to come to that. But here you can see how they frame this is always so interesting. Like a Maryland father who was just trying to escape a hard life, comes to America, marries some, citizen, and suddenly it's like a totally reinvented person. Incredible. Even though they broke into the country and were never supposed to be here to begin with. So here's what Will says. He says, look, and this is a beautiful summation and takedown of this fake hoax. So please make sure you're following Will Chamberlain at Will Chamberlain on X. And I just reposted that at the top of our timeline so you can give him a follow because this is great. Says, all right, look, here's the story today about this person. Kilmer Armando Abrego-Garcia, the quote, Maryland father, aka likely member of MS-13, who was removed to El Salvador, and the Atlantic, and apparently the entire political left who went bananas over this, are demanding to be returned to the United States. Here was the story. J.D. Vance was even mixing it up with other doofuses over on X. And here's what he said. First, let's talk. Here's his detention. He was detained, this person, Abrego-Garcia Kilmer Armando. He was detained March 2019, Biden. That was the end of the Trump term, right? And charged with removability. So 2020, we had the election. So this is Trump's term. Abrego-Garcia is a, quote, native and citizen of El Salvador. He crossed the border illegally in 2012 and thus was removable. Came into the country illegally. Totally independently of whether he's MS-13 or not, in our country illegally. Trump's in charge. This dude finally gets picked up in 2019. Now, the finding that he was a member of MS-13 only came up because he asked for bond. Said, I'd like to get out of custody. The immigration judge reviewed the evidence and found that, quote, it showed he is a verified member of MS-13, and therefore that Abrego-Garcia did not demonstrate that his release from custody would not pose a danger to others, right? After considering the information, the court concluded that no bond was appropriate. You can't get out. The court said the respondent failed to meet his burden of demonstrating that his release would not pose a danger to others. The evidence shows he's a verified member of MS-13. Okay. The BIA has also held that absent any indication that there is incorrect, blah, 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 not inherently trustworthy, and so on. So the immigration judge also found that this guy was a flight risk, noting his, quote, history of failing to appear for proceedings pertaining to his traffic violations, and thus on two independent grounds, the judge says, we can't release you because we can't trust you. You've already fled and not come back when you've gotten a notice to appear. You get a traffic ticket. Do you promise to appear? Yes, I signed the ticket. I promised to appear. Didn't show up. Twice, a couple times, more than once, traffic violations, and broke into the country. So then Abrego-Garcia appealed, right? So of course, now he's in the country illegally. Breaks the law, commits traffic violations, doesn't show up to court, probably driving on a suspended license, because if you don't show up to court, most states, at least Arizona does, and many others, will suspend your license, right? You can't not drive. So what, did he get a second ticket that was a driving on a suspended license? What's going on? So he's driving around, and then after he's already broken the law multiple times in the United States, he's like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? Appeal and just exploit these morons' legal system and just spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees having to process this person who broke into our country illegally and then is speeding all over the place, breaking the law. So then Abrego appealed to the Board of Immigration Appeals. What? They can't deport me. I'm here illegally. I have rights, which affirmed the immigration judge and their findings on dangerousness and thus dismissed the appeal. Okay, so all of the people who were screeching about this. Look, here's the process. December 19, 2019. Kilmer Armando, redetermination of custody status, says, we adopt and affirm, he appealed, and affirm his danger ruling. Notwithstanding his other allegations, he appropriately considered his gang affiliations and thus should not be released on bond. Great. So all that's happening. So then 6 months go by. We fast forward 6 months. So this guy gets another lawyer. New tactic comes about. Instead of challenging the finding of removability, right, he's about to get deported, he then says, oh, crap, I got picked up. I'm in the country illegally. Now I'm being deported. So he's going to file a new claim. Now his claim is for asylum, right? There are immigration lawyers all over the country doing this, making a ton of money. It's wild. Asylum. Oh, no, all of a sudden, I'm going to be removed because other judges found out I'm a gangbanger. And now he's challenging the finding of removability. Okay, now Abrego-Garcia filed a new claim. for asylum. I'm being attacked, and doesn't want to be withheld to El Salvador, and he wants protection under the Convention Against Torture. Okay, so again, already broke into the country illegally, broken the law multiple times, not shown up to court, and now hires a lawyer, and they say, now I'm going to be tortured if I go back to El Salvador. So files this, right? Then he gets a hearing. So we have to remember, says Will, the situation that Abrego-Garcia is in, okay? He's facing imminent removal. Given the ruling of the first immigration judge, he's about to go. He's got 2 brothers who have green cards. His fiance is a citizen. He's just given birth to a child. He clearly wants to stay. You might say all of that is very sympathetic. And you might say, well, that means we should keep him or whatever and have a heart or whatever. Or you might just say, he shouldn't have broken into the country and done all of those things. I don't know what the status of his brothers were or why they've got green cards. But he shouldn't have done those things, right? Should have had his fiance in his home country. He clearly wants to stay. So the respondent requested a bond redetermination hearing. The court conducted it at April. At the bond hearing, they requested a $5,000 bond. He said, I'm not a flight risk. I've lived in the United States for 8 years. My 2 brothers are permanent residents. My fiance is a citizen. And the respondent is helping raise and support her 2 children. So he married some other woman and is going to raise her 2 kids. Single mom raises her, and raising her kids. His fiance is also 5 months pregnant with his baby. Okay, her pregnancy is high risk. Maybe she's a little older or something. He stated that he failed to appear for hearings because he was not aware of those hearings, but he's going to hire an attorney and resolve those traffic proceedings. Okay, so at the hearing, applying for asylum, he then testifies that he fears returning to El Salvador because the 18th Street gang was targeting him, right? He's like, well, if I go back to El Salvador, the gang's going to kill me. The respondent is a 24-year-old native of El Salvador, born in 1995 in Los Nogales, El Salvador. The respondent testified he fears returning to his country's barrio because Barrio 18 gang was targeting him and threatening him with death because of his family's pupusa business, which are stuffed tortillas. The respondent's, which is the perfect name for it, the respondent's mother, Cecilia, ran the business out of her home. Now, although the business had no formal storefront, everyone in town knew their pupusas were amazing. The respondent's father, brother, and 2 sisters all helped run the family business. The respondent's job was to go to the grocery store, buy supplies needed for the pupusas. Then he and his brother would do deliveries 4 days a week to people. And the gang was extorting his mom. It's a shakedown. They're going to kill me. And they never reported anything to the police. Still, he fears for his life 8 years later, he says. The family has now closed down the pupusa business. So he's not under attack. So the family's pupusas are going to get attacked by the gangs. All right. So documents come out. So then, despite the convenience of his claims, now being made 8 years after the fact, the pupusa business is already done, while facing imminent removal, he's like, no, the gangs. And despite the lack of corroborating evidence beyond affidavits of his family, who were like, yeah, our pupusas were getting wrecked, the new judge says, oh, your account is credible. Oh, yeah, pupusa attacks in El Salvador. We know how much those gangs hate those mom and pop stores down there and how much they're exploiting everybody. And you're going to get killed for picking up tortillas at the grocery store. So then the new judge, okay, because he filed another claim, the Board of Immigration has recognized the difficulties that he may face in getting evidence. And so the absence of proof is difficult. But in the instant matter, he gave credible responses and his testimony was consistent. And so several affidavits from his family describe the pupusas. And so now we can't deport him. And so he's credible, and so we can't deport. But even after the finding, the new immigration judge he says, well, the pupusas were pretty clear. But I still cannot grant you your asylum claim. That was obviously time barred, okay? You've been in the country for how long? 8 years or something? Now you're claiming asylum? What? So they write, under the INA, an applicant for asylum under the law must demonstrate by clear and convincing evidence that the application has been filed within 1 year after their arrival, which is also wild. You can break in, be like, oh crap, I got to file my asylum paperwork. Now the government then would treat to agree it that way. Here, his application is time barred without exception. He testified he entered the U.S. in 2012. He did not file his application for asylum until after he was detained, and after 7 years showed no changes in circumstances. And so it's time barred, must be denied. So then now we turn to withholding, right? So he's got no legal asylum in the country. So therefore, he has no legal status in the United States, just to clear that up. Now, The judge says, he was granted withholding of removal. This is where the screw up was. That's not the legal right to stay in the United States. Only the legal right not to be removed to one specific country. Any third country, other country, would have been sufficient. Now, this is where the problem is. So, right, the withholding then comes in. All right, well, we're withhold of removal, they write. The judge wrote this. In contrast to the asylum, confers only the right not to be deported to a particular country rather than the right to remain in the U.S. To establish eligibility for withholding of removal, a respondent must show there's a clear probability of persecution in the country, in the removal country we're going to go back to, and blah, blah, blah. And whether you suffered past persecution and all of those things. So that's the issue, okay? Now, the United States did make a mistake, says Will, and this seems right, is that they sent him to El Salvador. They should not have sent him to El Salvador. But they could have, under the current provisions, right, sent him to another country. They just happened to have him in El Salvador. But seems like they could have still deported him. So then the next question, what about, could they terminate that withholding that was issued by the judge, right? The judge said, okay, you don't have asylum here, you're time barred. We're not going to kick you out to El Salvador. Could Trump terminate that second half? Now, the answer, says Will, almost certainly a yes. Here's why. If there's a fundamental change in circumstances, that means that Abrego's life or freedom would no longer be threatened. Then his withholding of removal could be terminated. A material change in circumstances. Trump can reevaluate this dude's status here. And the law says, well, yeah, I mean, if there is a major change, then you're no longer entitled to withholding. Now, remember, in his original petition, he was saying, if I go back to El Salvador, I'm going to get killed by the 18th Street Gang. Well, guess what? That was like a decade ago. That was 2019, years ago. Fortunately, Bukele has crushed the 18th Street Gang. So it's now safe for him to return because they're not there anymore. And his pupusa business can get back in full swing. Pupusa delivery. Now, again, just to be clear, he has no legal status in the United States. No asylum, no permanent lawful status, no residency, nothing. He just had the temporary right not to be removed to El Salvador. So that was the screw up. He should have had an interview on that subject and not been deported until it was granted. But nonetheless, the end result would have been the same, right? Trump could have ended up and likely did terminate the withholding. And everybody is spinning this out into some other thing, right? Now they're saying he was a legal resident and was removed. No, he was a removable alien. Podcaster John Faves. They say there's no evidence that he was a member of MS-13. Wrong. The original immigration judge and the Board of Appeals said, yeah, he is. Okay, both of them had enough evidence as to both of those. And others are sharing this misleading story. Abrego-Garcia had a legal right not to be deported to El Salvador. That is what he says, but that gang has been crushed. The only reason he wasn't going to be deported is because of the existence of the gang, and the gang no longer exists. So it's an interesting story, and I think a very nice explanation. Will wraps it up. He says, one final point. Let's be real about this, okay? Abrego-Garcia and his family were likely lying about the threats to his safety. Yeah, our pupusa business is going to get ransacked. He only came up with the story about his pupusa after he had been denied bail, right? It was his second attempt. Don't remove me, give me bail so I can flee again. And then got a new lawyer and they filed the asylum claim, and suddenly pupusa business comes out of nowhere. The guy crossed the border illegally. He admitted it. Never gained legal status, was finally detained in 19, found to be removable. He came up with a sob story to delay his deportation. And even if he were telling the truth, he should have had his withholding of removal removed as early as 2022 once Bukele crushed the gang. He has no right to be in this country. He crossed our border illegally, been residing in here illegally for almost 12 years, totally independent of whether or not he's a member. He needed to go home. Finn, from our friend Will Chamberlain. So a great thread. And I think that's a brilliant breakdown. And there'll still be criticism about that withholding, right? And Trump has submitted a filing saying that it was an error, and we'll see what they do to fix that, right? If there's much they can do to fix that, or what they'll do with this person, whether Nayib Bukele will take that person and send them to another foreign country, or what will happen. But the narrative that this guy was a citizen or lawful resident or permanent status is just not true, right? It's much more complicated. So don't let the media sell it to you like it's a Maryland father who just got rounded up when he was with his kids at McDonald's. It is a person who entered the country illegally and then availed themselves of the system and then used the system to stay in the country. It's like you break into the house, and if you're smart and clever enough, you get to own the house by the time you're done. And it's a wild situation to have The Atlantic and the same magazine that tried to set up Hegseth with Goldberg come out and defend these illegal invaders of our country. It's a sick thing. Thankfully, we got Will Chamberlain explaining what's happening. And Karoline Leavitt is also confirming that it's a fake story. Don't buy it. Here's what she said.
First of all, the error that you are referring to was a clerical error. It was an administrative error. The administration maintains the position that this individual who was deported to El Salvador and will not be returning to our country was a member of the brutal and vicious MS-13 gang. That is fact number one. Fact number two, we also have credible intelligence proving that this individual was involved in human trafficking. And fact number three, this individual was a member, actually a leader of the brutal MS-13 gang, which this president has designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Fact number four is that foreign terrorists do not have legal protections in the United States of America anymore. And it is within the president's executive authority and power to deport these heinous individuals from American communities. It is a promise he campaigned on. It is a promise he is keeping. And every single person in this room should be grateful for that, considering especially MS-13 is very prevalent and prominent here in the District of Columbia, in Maryland, and in Virginia. And the president, the attorney general, everyone who has been involved in these operations is focused on eradicating these criminals and terrorists from our communities.
Karoline Leavitt explaining what is happening to Tren de Aragua, despite the Democrats'
First of all,
best efforts, despite Judge Boasberg and the Tren de Aragua ACLU gangbanger lawyers who are all working hard to stop Trump. They are going to continue to protect the homeland, and we appreciate their work. All right, let's pause quickly and see what's cooking with the election. Here is what we see on the 4x4s. We still got some polls closing. It looks like 18 minutes, 20 seconds and counting over on CNN. And so not a lot's happening there. We, of course, will check back in on that. But let's carry on, shall we? Because we got some more business to attend to here. Starting with this one. Judge Boasberg facing heat in Congress. You remember who this judge is. He's been the person we've talked a lot about here. Boasberg on the D.C. District Court. Same judge who gave Ray Epps probation and said that Ray Epps was being hounded by people, I guess, like us, and was very upset about his poor treatment. The same judge who is ordering Trump to stop deporting Tren de Aragua terrorists. The same judge who is now handling the Signalgate case. Judge Boasberg. His wife is a pro-abortion person who runs a clinic down there. Daughter has some questionable connections too. But this judge now is facing some scrutiny. Representative Andy Biggs says, I've introduced a resolution to remove Judge Boasberg without needing 2/3 of the Senate, which is what you would need for an impeachment. Congress can't stand by while activist judges incorrectly believe they have more authority than the duly elected president, and Congress needs to do something about this. So Andy Biggs has now submitted a resolution, and here's what it looks like. This is going directly after Chief Judge of the District of Columbia, James Boasberg, aka Jeb, coming from Arizona. Shout out, doing some great work here. Andy Biggs running for governor very soon. Says, all right, be it resolved that James Boasberg, Chief Judge of the United States of D.C., is removed for failing to maintain the standard of good behavior required of judges under Article 1, Section 1 of Article 3 of the Constitution. And this is different than impeachment, which would require 2/3 of the Senate, just because this is a resolution, so simple majority vote in both houses would be sufficient to afuera this judge. Saying, article of removal exhibited by the House is about Boasberg. Saying, here's why. Article 1, abuse of power. Chief Judge Boasberg, in violation of his oath of office, did knowingly and willfully use his judicial position to knowingly interfere with President Trump's constitutional prerogatives and enforcement of the rule of law, and he did it for political gain. Now, the Constitution, writes Biggs, grants Congress the authority to create eliminate, regulate all federal courts that are inferior to the Supreme Court. Section 1 of Article 3 of the Constitution says that judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior. And that specific sentence, says Biggs, grants Congress the authority to remove a judge who fails to remain in good behavior while in office, a different standard than impeachment. The Constitution grants the president broad and expansive powers over foreign policy and to ensure national security, and the Supreme Court has even ruled that the power to conduct foreign affairs is a political power. It's a political power, which is largely beyond the scope of judicial inquiry or decision. It's not like you have to do this and this and this because the statutes say these are judgment calls. They're political calls. The courts can't substitute their judgment for that, or otherwise they're acting as the president. Now, as such, outside questions of constitutionality, is the law constitutional or not? Not what Trump did. The Constitution places foreign policy decisions by the president and Congress beyond the scope of review. You can't review that. The people review that at the ballot box. In 1798, they write, Biggs, Congress passed the Alien Enemies Act, 1798, been on the books for a long time, which authorizes the president to make a public proclamation that designates members of a foreign nation or government liable for apprehension and removal as alien enemies of the United States. The act gives the president sole authority to determine the manner of the enemy aliens and removal and establish any regulations that are necessary to ensure public safety. And that's what Trump did. On March 15th, President Trump issued a proclamation declaring that all Venezuelan citizens who are members of the organization known as Tren de Aragua are liable to be apprehended and removed under the Alien Enemies Act due to the threat that the organization poses to the United States and its clear entanglement with the government of Venezuela. And furthermore, due to the severity of these gangs' crimes against the United States, Trump declared that they are ineligible for the benefits of the act and are liable to immediate apprehension and removal. Pursuant to this declaration, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi took actions and started removing these people with haste. Now, despite the broad authority given by the Constitution to the president when conducting matters of foreign affairs and national security, and the clear authority given to the president under the Constitutional Act, so we've got Article 2 of the Constitution plus Congress and the Alien Enemies Act, we have two branches of government that are being overridden now by James E. Boasberg. He knowingly interfered with Trump's execution of foreign policy by ordering the return of members of a designated foreign terrorist organization to the United States. To justify his action, Boasberg cited questions about the interpretation of certain words and phrases, this dumb judge, which are intimately tied to the president's foreign policy powers and beyond the scope of his court. And in doing so, Boasberg knowingly extended beyond the bounds of power of his office and unjustly interfered with the foreign policy and national security of the presidency. And furthermore, in addition, Jeb James Boasberg has failed to disclose payments received from non-federal sources. And abused his discretion during his term on the FISA court. Where's that money coming from? What kind of money are you talking about there, Biggs? Accordingly, under the Good Behavior Clause of Section 1, Article 3, these actions of James Boasberg constitute misbehavior, render him liable from removal from office. Saying, wherefore, James Boasberg, by his conduct, has failed to remain in good behavior, should be removed from office, and no longer be considered judge of the United States. Signed or sent in to Congress by Andy Biggs from Arizona, saying, failed to disclose payments received from non-federal sources. That feels very scandalous. We'll have to see exactly what payments Andy Biggs is talking about. But he posted this on his X. Andy said, Congress must put a stop to rogue judges attempting to legislate for the entire nation. He says, we cannot stand by while activist judges who incorrectly believe they got more authority than the president. And so I have co-sponsored resolutions to impeach Judge Boasberg. His removal from office via impeachment, however, will undoubtedly be blocked by Democrats in the Senate. since it requires a 2/3 majority. My resolution, on the other hand, asserts, pursuant to Article 3, Section 1, that rogue judges may be removed the same way we confirm them, with a simple majority. Judge Boasberg abused his judicial authority for political gain and is not in compliance with the constitutional good behavior clause. He must not be permitted to remain in his position. Congress has a duty to fulfill the promises we've made to the American people, including defending the president's authority to enforce our laws. From Andy Biggs, and a mega hat tip and shout out to Law of Self-Defense, saying, I've been screaming about this message for weeks, and I concur that we should do this. So shout out to Law of Self-Defense. Make sure you're giving them a follow and a sub over on the YouTube for pounding the table on this one. So interesting developments there. We'll see what Congress does with it. Meanwhile, Chuck Grassley has been talking about this in the House as well. Here was a report from Fox News explaining.
Activist judges who oppose President Trump or exceed their jurisdiction. This week, both the House and the Senate are looking at ways to mitigate that trend. We've seen a lot of it. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram shows us how tonight.
Republicans raging.
These judges, are exceeding their powers beyond belief.
The GOP accusing judges of stretching their jurisdiction, issuing nationwide injunctions.
Yes, they have their constitutional powers, but not superior to the President of the United States nor the Congress.
House and Senate Republicans writing bills to limit the reach of these rulings.
Universal injunctions have become a favorite tool of those seeking to obstruct President Trump's agenda.
Hopefully it's going to send a message to these rogue judges.
Democrats call this bullying.
Part of this effort is to put in the judge's mind, whatever judge it is, if you don't go our way, we're going to get you one way.
You mean like when they were protesting outside Kavanaugh's house? Or when Chuck Schumer was outside the Supreme Court? There'll be a whirlwind coming for you, Kavanaugh. Remember that lunatic? We do. Well, here's more. Markwayne Mullin, he's in the Senate. He's saying, look, enough of this, okay? Last time I checked, the Constitution doesn't give district court judges the power to legislate from the bench. Here's Markwayne.
Hey guys, I want to talk to you real quick about the injunctions going on with the courts. You would think that there would be some agreement between the courts and the president on what he's doing, especially when it comes to illegal aliens and the crimes they're committing. I think the American people spoke very loud that they wanted law and order back on our streets. And so when the president tries to deport a plane full of illegal aliens that are gang members to El Salvador, you would think the judge would support that, right? You would think that considering he's a judge, he puts bad guys away, that we'd want to get these illegals that are bad guys out of our country. But no, the hatred towards President Trump even has the courts not being truthful with the American people. They simply hate everything that the president is doing. Let me talk to you about real numbers. So my liberal friends that are watching this, argue with this. Underneath the Obama administration in 8 years, the court only put in 12 injunctions. Underneath President Trump, his first term, in 4 years, they put up 64 injunctions. Biden, who was completely absent-minded, wasn't even running the country, which could arguably be the largest cover-up we've ever had in political history. The judges on these D.C. courts and the district courts around the country only put up 14 injunctions in 4 years. Now, President has been sworn in since January 20th. How many injunctions do you think the court's already installed? 15. Do you think there's some bias going on? Absolutely. That's why Speaker Johnson in the House and Leader Thune in the Senate is leading the charge to start holding these courts accountable. They are simply there to interpret the law and the Constitution, not weigh in from the bench because of their political bias towards President Trump. It has gone too far, and it's time for these courts and these judges to be held accountable.
Amazing. We're glad that you're in the Senate and that you can put some pressure on John Thune and others to take some action. That would be good. But even Americans agree. Harry Enton from CNN says, I wouldn't even believe these numbers unless I saw them. A large minority are against the idea of judges even being able to review Trump's policies. Let's listen to him explain.
40
Sometimes they're just some poll numbers that just jump up off the screen at me. Let's take a look here. All right, allow judges to review Trump's policies. Look at this. Overall, 77% say yes, compared to 23% that say no. Among Republicans, it is a majority, Laura, but it's just 56%. Look at this. 44% say no, judges do not have the right to review Trump's policies.
They don't, really. I mean, what kind of a question is it? It's kind of a dumb question. What does that mean? Like, to review the law? Like the law to see whether it's constitutional? They can do that. But they don't get to substitute their discretion. Like if Trump says our policy is to impose tariffs, or our decision is to, eliminate USAID or something, judges don't get to review those policy decisions. That's not what they're there for. They're there to determine the legality of them. It's kind of a terrible question.
It is an outstanding number to me. I never thought I would see it, Laura Coates.
All right, so maybe if you asked a better question, you would believe it. But okay, so Harry Enton's trying to understand what's happening out there. Good attempt. But what's happening is Boasberg, and the American people are getting sick of these judges. They're not elected. They're installed by Democrats. Most of them have been Obama, Clinton, or Biden judges who've all issued nationwide injunctions from blue states that impact the entire country. We've now got 27 states saying, we don't want gangbangers in our state. And so let's get them out of here. We're excited to see where this goes. Hopefully other representatives join in on this. And if these judges want to fight and say, no, you can't remove us based on simple majority, well, they can sue. They can go file a declaratory lawsuit, and Judge Boasberg can sue. He can go bring it to Judge Chutkan, and then Judge Chutkan can say, I'm sorry you're being victimized by Trump. And then Chutkan can issue a TRO on Andy Biggs, and then Andy Biggs can impeach her too. And we're going to cover it all. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, so let's check back in. We got polls closing in 3 minutes. Oh my goodness. We'll keep our eye on it. I'm sure the results will continue to trickle in. So not much happening there. Let's carry on, shall we? Because here's another fun one that we'll just hit the highlights on. This one is interesting. Democrats suing everybody. Trump came out, issued an executive order on the election changes. We covered it. Electoral reform, election integrity, very important words and concepts. And we'd like to undo everything the Democrats did when they perverted our elections, when they said that courts could change the election dates and deadlines and how they collected things without the legislature being involved in all. The courts came out and said COVID justified these changes. Trump's undoing that. And look who showed up. Not a surprise. In the District of Columbia, the DNC is suing, the Democrat Governors Association, the Democrat Senate Committee, the Democrat Congressional Committee, so the House, and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, okay? They are mad. Chuck Schumer from the Senate, Hakeem from the House, the major political parties for both the Senate and the House, the governors, and the entire DNC, all right? They all got together at one of their little parties and filed a lawsuit. Now they're suing basically everybody. So Trump, Executive Office of the President, the Election Commission, the DOJ, DOJ, State, Homeland, DOD, Veterans, Small Business, Interior, Social Security. They are suing Benjamin, of all people, and Donald, and Thomas, and Christie, and Pamela Bondi, and Amy Gleason, and Rubio, and Noem, and Hegseth, and Collins, and Kelly Loeffler, and even Doug Burgum in Leland. Can you believe this? So the Democrats are mad. I want to show you the highlights of this, and then we'll get some follow-up. But they are unhappy with Trump's executive order. And they're obviously freaked, as you can see, by all the parties that are here. And they're suing in D.C. This case got assigned to a Bill Clinton judge. Her name is Colleen Kolar-Kotley. It's the 3CK kind of sounding names. We'll get you. Colleen Kolar-Kotley. Bill Clinton appointed judge is now receiving this case brought by the Democrats, saying, all right, in the United States, the president doesn't get to dictate the rules of our elections. Okay. Yeah. Well, then how come you guys tried to do that with Joe Biden and had Joe Biden's DOJ prosecute Trump in 2 different locations? Now, Now, the framers of our federal constitution saw that self-aggrandizing leaders might want to corrupt our system. Yeah, in Federalist 51, one of the best ones, right? James Madison talking about ambition versus ambition. So they created decentralized systems, blah, 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 blah. But now Trump is seeking to impose radical changes. And we like to read this from the Democrats' perspective to see how much winning we're doing from their victimization, from their perspective. It's just kind of fun. On how Americans register to vote. And we're going to be threatened. The order attacks dozens of states that have properly and lawfully adopted ballot receipt deadlines, okay, that permit ballots to be cast by Election Day and to count if received. So remember that? So we saw a lot of this during COVID, and the courts came in here and shifted a bunch of stuff. And then guys like Mark Elias and Democracy Docket filed all those lawsuits via the Retired Alliance of America and all these fake organizations that we're now learning about what they really are. They were suing under all those names. We're watching it happen now. Just like the AIDS doctors and the Global Health Council and all of it, right? So they said, well, no, as long as it's cast, so like, at T-minus 1 hour until the polls close, as long as you get your vote in and shove it in the mail and you can backdate it and stamp it or whatever, it counts. So now Trump issued an order. He says, oh, this is ridiculous. And what he's going to do is impose unjustifiable burdens on all Americans. And the Democrats say it's going to harm families and women and lower income voters. And look how mad they are. And the so-called DOJ department is going to look at people's sensitive info without any statutory authority. Oh, I think this is probably it. Trump's executive order forces federal agencies to reveal sensitive data about millions of voters to DOJ. We have seen what DOJ came up with when they went and looked at the Social Security Administration, what they found. What are they going to find when they look at the election access information? That's going to be epic. So this is why they're all freaked. That's why they're all suing. And it wields federal dollars as a cudgel to force states to do Trump's bidding to the detriment of their voters. And it's going to deprive them of crucial grants and fund elections and law enforcement. Again, cutting off their election money, which was their get out the vote money, right? That was their busing people from all over the place to go to these certain polls and stuff. Although the order reflects, they write, Trump's personal grievances, it imposes sweeping changes on how Americans vote. They say Trump has no authority to do this. And the plaintiffs in this action are all the Democrats. And I mean like all of them. And that carries weight with it, right? Wow, it's like everybody. It's like the Senate and the House. They're all suing. So this judge is going to take it seriously and grant them probably what they want. So the DNC is the oldest committee, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares about these Democrat hack committees. And you see the rest of this. So let's see what they're asking for. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's just Democrat caterwauling and it's not very interesting. But they're going to say, in conclusion, here's what they want. Trump issued an executive order. They're asking the Bill Clinton judge saying, please declare that Trump's executive order is void and that it's not enforceable and it violates separation of powers and everything. Okay, stop Pam Bondi from doing this. Stop the State Department. Stop Homeland. Stop DOJ. Stop Social Security and more. Oh, look who it is. Look who it is. Mark Elias, the Elias Law Group. Ah, perfect. Okay, so they're back. Great. So we'll add this to the list. Mark Elias coming in. And that's interesting because the Democrats, I thought that they separated with Mark Elias. They terminated that relationship, huh? Something happened there. And now they're crawling back to him like, please help us. Trump's going to undo everything that you did in changing all these rules. And so they bring out the big guns. That's like the top dog. This is like the top dog election lawyer. Okay, so they're freaked. So they're going to really turn this into something and try to stop Trump from reforming the elections because this is just like everything else. It's the same pattern. All the USAID stuff, fake, grifted garbage, as we're seeing. How many millions of Social Security numbers did Elon discover that were granted to illegal aliens? We got Tren de Aragua doing cartwheels around here, filing asylum claims 10 years after the fact with our judges because they know that there's nothing we can do about it. It's a joke. Mark Elias, the same thing. As soon as we get this election information, we're going to see the same gigantic facade that was stood up on our taxpayer dollars, and the infrastructure is going to come crumbling down. That's why they're freaked. They know this is going to be the mother lode, and we're excited for it. So here's more. We had this hearing today about these judges, and of course, they sued in D.C. They got a Bill Clinton judge, and they're going to have fun with that. But Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House and an astute American historian, is explaining exactly how these activist judges are being weaponized against Trump and against America.
I think the courts have issued nationwide injunctions against President Trump with such frequency. It's kind of a question we're all pondering right now.
You know, one of my favorite books on the law is The Bramble Bush, which is the 1929 introductory lectures at Columbia Law School, in which draws a distinction between the law as it is practiced and the law as it is written. So let's just, at a common sense level, be honest. Donald Trump represents a profound, fundamental shaking up of a very deeply resistant establishment, which can be traced back to Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. You take on a system that's almost 100 years old, the system fights back. The last great bastion of power held by the left is district court judges and their allies on the Supreme Court. And they're behaving, as a historian, this is a perfectly natural thing. They're doing everything they can to stop the president, who was elected by millions of Americans. They were elected by no one. But under our system, they have a certain amount of power. Not nearly as much as the modern legal system believes, because the 1958 decision by the Supreme Court, which said we are supreme, is baloney. The Supreme Court is supreme in Article 3. It is not supreme over the whole Constitution. And I think we're now going to face a genuinely important, historic conversation as a country about whether or not unelected judges on a randomized basis, who happen to be 92% Democrat, have the power to stop
Interesting how
the
that
elected
works.
commander-in-chief on item after item after item. My guess is the American people will say to the legislative branch, you got to be kidding me. And if Justice Roberts wants to cut this off, he should act now.
Do it!
Because this is going to get worse, not better.
Thank you, Newt. John Roberts. Maybe he'll issue another statement about Newt Gingrich. You know, this is offensive, Newt. Don't talk about the Chief Justice that way. I respect your elders, or something. Or, John, you could just get your house in order. Stop this madness. All right, so good developments there. Now, this is another clip. Also, from Congress, lots happening there today. And the Democrat lawyers are freaked out. Election changes coming down that are going to evaporate their so-called lead in elections. And now their bureaucrats are being fired. Their NGOs are being defunded. And this guy was very unhappy about it. He came out, said, I just got fired. This HHS worker was going after a senator, Jim Banks, following him around the halls of Congress. And here is how this exchange went down.
Hi, I was a worker at HHS. I was fired illegally on February 14th. There are many people who are not getting social service programs, especially people with disabilities. Are you going to do anything to stop what's happening?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it.
Dude, that's
wow.
so sad.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Why did I deserve it?
Because you seem like a clown.
Okay, sir, you shouldn't have said that.
Hi, I was a worker.
Bye. I can't get over the timing of that, because you are acting like a clown.
Wow. Yeah, that's great to hear. Why did I deserve it?
Because you seem like a clown.
Okay, sir, you shouldn't have said that.
Hi.
Gone. See you later. Up to the next floor. Have a nice life. So that's what we're seeing. Clowns acting like clowns, clowns getting fired, and senators just not taking it anymore. Okay, stop with your sob story. Stop with the low-income, disadvantaged families are not going to be able to go poll, not go vote somewhere. Mark Elias. We're not buying it anymore. Stop acting like clowns. All right, we got one final update, my friends, and then we're going to hear from you. A battle between Representative Luna, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and the Republicans in the Republican House of Representatives. Very curious thing that's happening now. Paulina Luna has been demanding proxy voting for women who give birth in Congress so that they don't have to travel from their districts back to Congress to Washington, D.C. It's a lot of work. They got to lug the diaper bag and this baby. It's a lot of work. So she says, look, how about we just allow proxy voting so people can just phone it in? She said, well, why don't we just pitch that to the leadership? Now, leadership, she said that they will not consider at all allowing female members to vote when recovering from childbirth. Period. Not now, not ever. She says this is wrong. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mike Johnson, Steve Scalise have a different take on this, but here is what happened today when they were going to go vote to move beyond this issue. You can see that there was a resolution and a bunch of Republicans crossed the line and joined in with the Democrats.
On this vote, the yeas are 206, the nays are 222. The resolution is not adopted. Without objection, motion to reconsider laid upon the table.
Democrats cheering, and a handful of Republicans join in on it with them. And here's what it looked like when they were walking out of the House. So Tim Burchett came out, says, we just changed House rules, and here is their celebration.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett's leaving the House floor. Luna, tell us what we just did.
We just changed the House rules to allow new parents to vote after the birth of the child.
Seems pretty reasonable to me. And that's a sweet little baby right there. Anyway, Tim Burchett, thank y'all for sending me here.
All right, so Tim Burchett there, he's happy about it. Some people are not happy about it. Marjorie Taylor Greene is explaining that this seems like it's pretty dang selfish. Says, I can't believe that Congress was hijacked this week over Luna's resolution to allow members to skip work and vote from home. As a mom, I know all about seasons of life. If you aren't capable of doing the job as your constituents sent you to do, then you should step aside. Let someone else do it. We have critical bills to pass to prevent illegals from voting and to stop judges from vetoing President Trump's agenda. You know, it's a shame that selfish politicians are putting themselves before the American people. Here's Marjorie and her take on what's happening.
What we just voted on, this rule, Luna's bill, is extremely unfortunate. You know, being in Congress is a privilege. You don't have to be here.
True.
And there's plenty of people in her district that could serve in Congress if she chose for time to be home and be a mother. I'm very much against the bill that she's trying to force to the floor and the way she's going about it, and I think it's wrong. And it's really going to open up the door to proxy voting, which is already unconstitutional,
right,
and we shouldn't be doing it. And I think members of Congress need to basically leave their egos at the door and realize that this is an important job. In the same way that soldiers go off and they're deployed overseas, they come home and actually meet their babies for the first time, and their babies are several months old. Members of Congress don't have to be here. They don't have to be here. Being a member of Congress is a privilege. You're serving your district. There's lots of seasons of life. I'm a mother. I've raised 3 children. And when my children were babies and were young, I prioritized them in that season of life. Now I serve in Congress because I'm not raising children. And I think that's a really important point to make. And if any member of Congress, for any reason whatsoever, finds them in a situation where they're not able to do the job here, the important job we're elected to do, they should step down, because someone else can serve in their place. They're not required to be here. They're not more important than anyone. They're not more important than people in their district. And they shouldn't go across the aisle and work with Democrats while Democrats use a baby propped up around the floor trying to prove their point. But instead, they're holding a baby proving the point you can be a mother and serve in Congress.
Yeah, bring your kid, bring the diaper bag.
I think this is unfortunate, and it's distracting, and it's off message, and it's not the agenda. It's not serving the American people.
Yeah, and it's also causing a lot of problems, as we're going to hear from Mike Johnson in the future. But it is curious. Is it only for women who give birth? And then what is first of all, the Democrats were voting on this. Do they even know what a woman is? I'm confused on that. And then if this rule, I guess it has passed now, what if a trans, don't we have a transgender congressperson in there? What if that person has a baby or something? Does that person get paternity leave too? Or maternity leave? Or whatever they want that day? What's happening with that one? What if you're a father Do you get paternity leave? What if you're a congressman and your wife has a baby? You have to go into Congress, but the woman can stay home and vote? Is it a physical thing? How much time after is it that they get to stay home and not vote? I think we're with Marjorie on this one. It seems pretty reasonable that you could just, pack your bags and go. I know it's a lot of work. I don't have kids. I haven't experienced this, but it is Congress. It's kind of an important thing. And I worry about the slippery slope that happens if you start, then we start to get Pete Buttigieg congressmen who are like, I need 6 months away from Congress now because I just adopted 2 other people's babies or something, So strange things that are happening there. But Marjorie seems like she's on the right side on this one. Now, there's also other consequences here outside of just the policy. Here is what Scalise had to say about this.
2 more members tomorrow, and members ultimately, have to make some decisions about, are they going to delay the Trump agenda or not?
Why send the household? Why not try to list the week this
Well,
week?
because the rule failed.
So why not just drop it? I mean, just give a concede on this. Let Luna win on this.
Well, the whole idea of proxy voting is the concern. It's not only the constitutional issues. It's the fact that it's not going to end there. You'll basically go to proxy voting for everything. And other members have admitted that. They said they've got bills ready to go to expand it even further, and then you've got pure proxy voting. And we saw that when Pelosi created that rule, and the abuses that happened were well documented and widespread. That's another.
How's the budget looking?
2 more members
All right,
tomorrow.
so Scalise saying it's just a problem in general, and it doesn't work. We've tried it before. It's a big problem. And here's what Mike Johnson said. Hope it was worth it. A handful of Republicans just joined every House Democrat to take down a rule. This means we can't take any further action on Trump's agenda this week. No SAVE Act, no vote to address rogue judges attacking Trump, no votes to repeal Biden regulations because some moms want to stay home with their babies in Congress.
Well, it's a very disappointing result on the floor there. A handful of Republicans joined with all the Democrats to take down a rule. That's rarely done. It's very unfortunate in this case. 96% of House Republicans voted against proxy voting because they believe it's unconstitutional and they agree that it would open a Pandora's box. And so that's what we just saw. Let me just make this clear. That rule being brought down means that we can't have any further action on the floor this week. That means we will not be voting on the SAVE Act for election integrity. We will not be voting on the rogue judges who are attacking President Trump's agenda. We will not be taking down these terrible Biden policies with the CRA votes. All that was just wiped off the table. It's very unfortunate. We'll regroup and come back, and we'll have to do this again.
Do it again. And Luna and Tim Burchett walk out. They seem like they emerged victoriously, but we'll see if this backfires on them or if there was any backlash here and whether or not they can come to an agreement on this or whether if this is, going to be the new rule in the future, because then we have questions about proxy voting for everybody else. And I guarantee you Buttigieg congressmen are going to want their paternity leave. All right. So my friends, if you're just joining us, quick recap, then we're going to hear from you. Talked a lot today about Judge Boasberg, same judge who granted Ray Epps probation in his January 6th case. Yeah, this guy. Well, 27 states are now joining in with President Trump, supporting Trump's efforts to have this judge's orders reversed, essentially, so that they can continue to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport the Tren de Aragua gangbangers in spite of the ACLU's best efforts. We covered that case. We're at the Supreme Court, waiting for more action from them, and got the details on that. Then we talked about this House resolution that was submitted by Andy Biggs from Arizona, shout out, who is now saying that we can just use the simple majority to get rid of these judges. Just boot them out. Simple majority in both houses. They are in office. They're on the bench during times of good behavior. If they drop below that standard, all you need to get them out of there. We read through some of the Democrats' lawsuit, and I mean like the Democrats, like everybody. Hakeem, Schumer, DNC, Congress, Senate committees, all of them suing based off of the Elias Law Group's complaint, suing everybody in the Trump administration to undo the election changes. Shout out to Jim Banks. And by the way, I saw this. Let me see if I have this. Jim Banks also changed his profile picture. He was the senator who we just saw there. And here's Senator Jim Banks's new profile picture. He was the guy in the elevator. Here's what his new profile picture is. See, ready? Here it is. New profile pic. Ding. Don't be a clown. And you won't be treated like one. See ya, Jim. See you on the next floor. I guess we'll take the stairs. New profile pic from Jim Banks. Just amazing. All right, so we talked about that. Shout out to Jim. And then we talked about this Luna backfire, maybe. I don't know. We'll see what you say about it. I'm not going to be pregnant personally anytime soon. So, shout out to the moms out there. We'll see what the moms say about it. But we think you probably should just, head over to Congress or just give birth in D.C., and then just go to Congress from there. Okay, so anyways, some great stuff. We talked about Luna, Marjorie Taylor Greene, not happy with Luna, Scalise and Mike Johnson in the same camp. And now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and see what you have to say about all of this. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for subscribing to our channel. We are, of course, coming back tomorrow. Thanks for coming back and joining us, and thanks for bringing a friend with you, because we'd love to meet them. We also have amazing members-only streams. We had a great members-only stream this morning. 12 noon Eastern is when we go live on Locals and on YouTube. We'd love to have you come join us so that we can get to know you and you can meet everybody else in the Membo community. It's a ton of fun, and it's a great way to support our work. Thanks for doing that. Okay, and my friends, thanks for sending in these super chats and these donos, and for inviting new Membos in to join us today. Let's see who is here. Donut is clipping for us. Thank you, Donut. Clipping away. I appreciate that. Thanks for helping out on the show today. We got this one from, it's Taco Tuesday. What's up? It is Taco Tuesday, my friends. Hopefully you're enjoying some delicious tacos or pupusas, whatever. Pupusa. Could be a pupusa day too. Pupusa Tuesday. What's up? I am Divine Creation. Says, where's the unalived pigeons? Says bird flu is untrue. Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Are people tracking bird flu with pigeons? Do pigeons get sick with anything? Are they just kind of like flying bacteria fests? I don't know. I am Divine Creation. Thank you for the dono, though, and thanks for being a membo. Hey, Shane is here. Thank you, Shane, for reminding our friends here to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and on Rumble and everywhere. Hit the notification bell and select all so you never miss a thing. Thank you, Shane, for that. This one came in from Rick Donner. Hey, Rick D's here. Thank you, Rick. It's Rick bringing in 5 new friends. Thank you, Rick. Samantha Richardson. Laszlo Puent is here. We got Sue Silver, Lucidin, Mars Soul, gifted membos courtesy of Rick D. Rick, thanks for that. Appreciate our new friends coming in. Doan is here. Says, Boasberg's attendance at a judicial fellowship at Anti-Trump Rodell Institute, aka the Dem Strategy Session with payment and reimbursement records omitted. Oh yeah, we got that in our research file here on Boasberg. That's down here, right? Where is that? Where's this at? There it is, right? Yeah, there's Boasberg. There's Doug. That's Amy Berman Jackson right there. Okay, she's another Democrat judge who's been terrible. That's Judge Millett, I think. Yep, that's Judge Patricia Millett. She's the Nazi judge. Even the Nazis got treated better. Okay, so Boasberg, Emhoff, Millett, and Amy Berman Jackson, along with Judge Breyer, Stephen Breyer. He's a former SCOTUS judge. All in one picture, palling around. Like, they're perfect. And then this is his wife. This came over from our friend Amuse on X. You see Amuse. Shout out to Amuse. That's Boasberg's wife, who goes by Elizabeth Manson because she doesn't like her husband and didn't want to take his name. I hate that guy. I'd rather keep the Manson name. All right. So then also was palling around with Doug. That's at her abortion clinic, right? And that is, of course, Xavier Becerra in tow. Isn't it fun? One big, disgusting, incestuous, anti-American family. Thank you, Doan. Off-label podcast says, we're getting our pupusas wrecked. LMFAO. Hey, thanks for another clever word for using foul language. I will only use it when it's funny, though. I know. I was about to go off the rails with the Papusa thing. I'm pretty proud of myself for not going overboard with that. It was a serious case, but I mean, the Papusa thing was just like, oh my gosh, I could have Papusa'd that. I could still Papusa it aggressively, but we won't. We won't. Knox says, my daughter was incorrectly deported. Whoa! With her then husband, a Mexican national. The error was only realized once she was in Mexico. I had to go to Obregon, Mexico to get her and prove she was a U.S. citizen. She is blonde with blue eyes and 0 tattoos. It does happen. Wow, that's a wild story, Knox. When was that? How did that happen? Like, how did that even happen? She's a citizen and she got deported? That's a big problem. That's a big problem. And I mentioned this last week, right? If Trump, like if we have some citizen, like if I call you guys, I'm like, hey guys, I'm in El Salvador. I don't know how this happened, but I'm down here, live stream from the prison. That's a problem. If there's one U.S. citizen that ends up in a foreign prison anywhere, one U.S. citizen, it's going to be a big problem, right? This is obviously a big problem. This should never happen. And I hope it does not happen. I'm glad you were able to get that resolved. But yeah, that's very scary. Thank you, Knox. Defense attorney in Texas, so you can take that one to the bank. What's going on? John McGarvey says, yesterday wasn't my fault. Your low energy sent me into a coma. Glad to see you corrected that today. Come at me, bro. So yesterday's show was subpar. Is that what you're saying, John? Well, I don't know what the deal was. Must have been the atmospheric pressure or something. Thank you, John. The request for a correction has been noted. Thanks for being a membo for 32 months, John. We appreciate you. Thanks for modding the fort down as well. Rick D says, here was Kid Rock playing FDR's piano in the White House. Man, that's pretty cool. Piano's beautiful. Shout out to Kid Rock. What's up, Rick? Thanks for that. Hey, Elf is bringing in 10 new membo friends. Elf, thanks for sending this one in. Foreign Games is a new membo. Bayou Dreams. We got Azok, Safon, Nana 1776. Welcome. Michael Mathis, Liz Bots. We got Space Baby, Clay Napier. We got Max Deplorable and others coming in thanks to ELF. ELF bringing in 10 new membo friends. We appreciate that. Sportfish says, hey, Rob, from White Wolf 60 on Rumble says, could the arrests of judges nullify cases that they frivolously started? So the judges, the judges didn't start them is the kind of the rub on that. So the lawsuits were filed in their courtroom and they got, they issued the order, right? But the cases would still exist regardless of the judge. Like judges will not usually get arrested often, but retire or, pass away, unfortunately. And the cases don't die. Like when the judge passes away, the case doesn't die. It just gets reassigned. So if this judge gets arrested for, unless the case, unless the judge did something specifically improper with the case and the order, then that would invalidate that case and those orders. But like if like, for example, if the judge just got arrested for something with children and photos or something, like, okay, that's not related to his injunction. So that injunction would not be nullified. It'd be reviewed by another court, another judge maybe, and they can modify it, but not specifically. Like the cases are brought by other parties, not by the judges. Doan says, can't destroy the executive without the dirty courts. Nope, and they're pretty dirty right now. They're working hard for it. Hey, YC Treason over on Rumble. Thank you, YC. Very nice, pithy comment. Thank you, YC Treason. Says, appreciate your coverage. Thank you, YC. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching on Rumble. Thanks for being a membo over there. And thanks for the nice donut. I really appreciate it. Acid Burn, what's up? Says, freedom for all. Amen to that. Sherry, what's up, Sherry? Thank you for the tip, Sherry. And Charles Beck is here. Says, GOP, we didn't elect you to infight. Stop playing the left's game and get back to work. I know. Luna versus Marjorie. It's getting a little prickly out there. Uncle Bozy, what's up, Uncle Bozy? Says, okay, so who won the burn competition this week? Oh, yeah, Tim Burchett or Jim Banks? Man, those are good. That's a great question. We might need a poll on that. Tim Burchett had a good one with Does your mom always turn on your Game Boy, prepare your Hot Pockets and turn on your Game Boy every night? And that other guy was just like, oh, yes, she does. It was good. It was good. I don't know. Hey, Kareem is here. What's up, Kareem? Good to see you, Kareem. Bringing in 5 new friends. Kareem, what's up? David Moffat is coming in. We got Chad Parsons, Andrew Davis, LMC is here, and Trauma ICU are in. Shout out to our trauma nurses in the ICU, saving lives out there. We love you. Hey, what's up? Kareem is typing, and it's taking a long time. Matt Damon is turning into an old man. Matt Damon. Hey, Acid Burn is here. I'm going on vacation to Europe. I'm voting anyway. Why show up when I can be of somewhere more fun? Destroy America. Vote with the den of people. So, from Acid Burn. Good to see you, Acid Burn. Safe travels over to Europe. Hey, Ziggy Girl. Good to see you, Ziggy Girl. Says, you can't indict Congress people while in session? I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, so I think you're asking probably about legislative immunity. In other words, Congress, you can't indict or charge Congress people for doing congressional things. And that's the idea, is that you want them to be able to legislate openly without threat of being penalized. So, for example, we saw this happen with Nancy Mace, the congresswoman who came out and gave her speech about some random dudes that I don't know anything about, and said specifically, I can't be sued because I'm protected because I'm giving this speech on the House floor. So she's protected with legislative immunity. But if Nancy Mace were to go out and Congress were in session and, hit somebody in her car and get a DUI or something like that, like, she could still be charged. She's not immune from that. But it's an interesting question. Congress shuts down and tomorrow is Liberation Day. Oh, so Congress is no longer in session. Maybe they're all going to get rounded up. Coincidence? Great job, Rob. Watch you every day. Thank you, Ziggy Girl. I really do appreciate that. Thanks for watching on Rumble, too. And for being a member over there. We appreciate you. Very nice dono, Ziggy. Thank you. Acid Burn is here. Says, get your kids small dogs, Rob. Every kid needs a small dog. I think that's pretty good advice, actually. I think it is. I don't have any kids, though. Deluxe says, I wish I was better on the internet to build a montage of this year's mic drop moments, like don't be a clown. And if it wasn't for America, they'd be speaking German right now. Please play that clown comment for us again. I was under my tractor and smacked my forehead on the transmission earlier. Too bad there wasn't video. LMAO. All right, well, we're going to do this because it'll make your head feel better. So we'll just play that one just one more time because it was just that epic. And let me see, what did I do with this? Yes, here it is. Here it is. One more time from Jim Banks.
14th, there are many people who are not getting social service programs, especially people with disabilities. Are you going to do anything to stop what's happening?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it?
You probably deserved it.
I deserved it.
Dude, that's
wow.
So rude and sad.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Why did I deserve it?
Because you seem like a clown.
Okay, sir, you shouldn't have said that.
I was a worker at H.
You know what's so great about that? The more you listen to it, there is a pointed and pungent pause in the air right there. Like, and they can't even believe what he said to them. They can't even believe it. They're exasperated. He took their breath out of their mouth. You can hear it.
You seem like a clown.
Okay, sir, you shouldn't have said that.
Okay, sir. She's like, I don't even know what to say. Oh, it's great. All right. So, and he's got a new profile pic and it looks just awesome. So, shout out to his no profile pic. Bye. Bye. Oh, amazing. All right. So what else we got, my friends? Hey, Deluxe Night. Hope your head feels better. Thanks for making our food for us. Hey, Kareem. Thank you for another great show, Rob. Thank you, Kareem, for another great dono. We appreciate you. And G-Man says, thought this was funny. Look at the masks. I thought this was funny. Look at the masks. Where do you see yourself in 6 months to a year? I can't put that on the screen, G-Man. The masks. Yeah, because that's Mel Gibson and he's in the scene of The Patriot where he's taking out the redcoats, Donald Womack. What's up, Donald Womack? Thank you for becoming a supporter, Donald Womack. We'll see you tomorrow. Membos, we'll see you in the morning for the Membos only morning stream. Charles Beck is here. Charles Beck says, too bad. Too bad. And Kendall Links says, Rob bookends his show with papoose stories. Man, I'm very curious about, I had to be careful now. Very curious about pupusas in El Salvador. Never had one. Might be good though. I don't know. All right, my friends. Thank you for sending those in. Let's say hello to our friends on X and see who's joining us over there before we wrap it up and go over to locals, watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. And BYOP, bring your own pupusas. Hey, Fred says, great, you have Andy Biggs and I have this woman, says Fred. Yeah, she's not very good. We're happier with Biggs. Hey, free thinking Latina says, oh, the joys of hearing hello, my beautiful friends. It is great to see you, free thinking Latina. It's a beautiful day. What's up, Angie? Tim and Shaterica. Good to see you. Hey, what's up? Tim, Angie says, hey, blessings and good evening. Angie, good to see you, Angie. Nice to see you over on X. And good to see our fellow friends out there on X in the wilderness and the wild. If you're on X, give us a follow, give other friends a follow, and connect with each other out there in the wild. Rob on Rumble says, can we keep the non-violent illegal aliens and deport Democrats? Well, definitely the non-citizen Democrats. Yeah, definitely. Deport them very quickly because we know that some of them are voting. So, my friends, thank you for sending in those amazing donos. Chat with me says, I just got here, and after Rob's El Salvador comment, I don't know if I want to know anymore. Yeah, it's a good call. Yeah, it's a good call. That one was a good one. Acid Burn, what's up? Thank you, Acid Burn. Bringing in 10 new Membo friends. Oh, and hey, we had two donos that came in yesterday that I forgot to get. And I want to make sure we get those. Acid Burn says, Susie, Bonham, Horsewoman, Thunderbird is coming in. Shrug 65. We got Nalij is here. Hex Sailing, Salty, Chalky 81, Philip Coggins, Proxy Loxy, gifted Membos courtesy of our friend Acid Burn. Bringing in 10 new amazing Membos. And thank you for bringing them in, Acid Burn. You're amazing. We got some other comments from yesterday that I missed, like a doof. Lady L, what's up, Lady L? Lady L sent in a nice $20 super chat yesterday. Lady L, sorry I missed you. We were wrapping up and I just saw it. You said, Yahoo! That's all you said, and I appreciate that. Very nice comment. Obviously, I agree with you. And Jenny Teets sent in this one, says, love your great sense of humor. Thank you, Jenny Teets, for sending that in yesterday. Sorry we missed you yesterday on the stream. But I appreciate you being a member. Lady L, I appreciate you being a member. And we're grateful for you both being here. Thanks for sending those in. Sorry I missed you yesterday, but wanted to make sure we got them. Okay, so my friends, that is going to be it for us on the day. Members, we're coming back tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern time for the Membo stream. Locals, hang tight. We're doing our after party here in a few quick minutes. But my friends, otherwise, if I don't see you at any one of those other two activities, we will be back tomorrow. To do this again, before we wrap it up, we want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths. K-Bean in the house, Donut, Mind Me. We got Carrie B, Playing Hooky, Dog Digger, and Janek modding the fort down for us, keeping things oh so beautiful and nice and orderly around here. But now, my friends, it is time for us to wrap up. We're going to locals. We're going to hang out and debrief Membos tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern. Otherwise, my friends, I want to thank you for being here, and I want to wish you a great and tremendous evening. We're coming back tomorrow to get into it again. And in order to do that appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Yvette, thank you for all. Yvette, my friends, make it a beautiful night. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.